What's up? Welcome in, Hoge and Jahns, back with you as we jump into, what is it, week 12? Part of the year where I lose track of what week it is. Yeah, it is week 12. The Bears are 4-6. They have a less than 1% chance of making the playoffs.
This is where you have the Dumb and Dumber Jim Carrey meme, gif, whatever you want to call it, where you're saying there's a chance. Great movie.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Dumb and Dumber, yeah, Mark Carmen spent a whole segment of our show earlier this week with a take that the Bears are mathematically still alive for the playoffs, which yes, is almost not true.
Almost. There are 10 teams in the NFC that have more victories than the Chicago Bears, and they play. The rest of the schedule is full of teams that have more wins than the Bears currently have.
Yeah. What a missed opportunity it's been the last few weeks. I mean, I remember going when the Bears were 4-2 in the bye week. There were discussions about which seed they could get.
Well, that was a bit premature.
Well, maybe, but
they literally are 2 plays away from being 6-4.
Yes. Which would still be tough given their schedule to hold on and make the playoffs. But at least, yeah. And then the other 2 games, they probably, well, I don't know. The Cardinals are actually pretty good, but
can I give you a hypothetical?
Sure.
If Tyreek Stevenson does his job in Washington, is Shane Waldron still the Bears offensive coordinator right now?
Probably, but that doesn't mean that the same problems didn't exist, which they did. Most of the problems Shane Waldron got fired for was there in week 1.
Correct.
So that's
maybe he has more of a runway. Maybe we're talking about his dismissal like after the Lions game, but then it's a little bit too late.
Right. And it's a waste of time for your rookie quarterback. Because, and this is what we're going to talk about off the top. By the way, we got Alec Lewis joining us here in a little bit. Does a great job covering the Vikings for The Athletic. Has been on the show before. And you can follow us at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns, hogeandjahns.com. We got a new shirt for you up. By the way, we're going to have a Black Friday sale coming your way too. So stay tuned for that. A lot of great stuff up there. And, but yeah, on that top, there it is. Every Yard Matters, our new show, which we just want to make sure everybody knows that every yard does matter. To Johnsy's point about 2 plays away from being 6-4 right now. Ultimately, this does come down, especially, you look at the playoff chances, this does come down to Caleb's development, which I hope was one of the biggest reasons why ultimately Matt Eberflus was convinced by whoever it was to pull the trigger and make the offense coordinator change. Because I know, Jahns, you were going to ask me just about my experience at Hallis Hall yesterday, but it feels different. It feels different than it did a few weeks ago, even if, the result on the field Sunday was still the same.
May I say that again?
I said it feels different, even if the result on the field was the same on Sunday.
Okay.
Does that make sense or no?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Try again.
You don't think it feels different on the offensive side of the ball with the coaching staff?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The offensive side of the ball, yes.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I was thinking like the whole building. Thomas Brown presents just a different energy than Shane Waldron can even like try to present.
That's what I mean.
Okay. Say that next time.
Okay. How about this? Don't you feel more confident about the development of Caleb Williams today than you did 10 days ago?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
That's what I'm getting at. So apologies if I made that confusing.
I probably should have paid attention to what you were saying too.
Yeah. Don't worry. I work at CHGO. I'm used to my co-host not listening to me. Yeah. Wow, that's 2 shots at them in 6.5 minutes. Good.
It's Friday. It's okay.
Yeah, it is. It is okay. Yeah, so yesterday was my first Thomas Brown experience, which I was confused about because I was in the building yesterday and people were like, "Oh, we haven't seen you in a while." And I'm like, I swear I was here last week. And I was, but Thomas Brown did his press conference on Wednesday. So that made sense that I missed it. So that was my first time sitting in there. Of course, I watched last week's presser. I could tell just watching on YouTube that it was different. And of course, I've talked to him, earlier in the offseason and in this, we've had availability with him previously. And then, of course, you just hear all the players talking. And you have other conversations with people too, behind the scenes. And it's just, I wrote this in my newsletter to this morning, Jahns, and I'll throw this at you because I kind of crowdsourced this opinion in the media room yesterday too, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Can you remember a coach in the time we've covered the team, head coach, assistant, whatever, that gave off a more confident leader of men vibe quicker than Thomas Brown has? Does that make sense? Where just almost in the first press conference, you're like, I don't know where this is going, but this guy has it. He has that.
No, like Luke Getsy had his moments, but he wouldn't talk as directly about offensive strategy or like have lines like this. Like this is how Thomas Brown closed his opening statement, right? Opening statement. Football is a violent game, and it rewards those who play the game violently. Like that, okay. I like that. What else do you have to say? I think fans like that.
There were a few quotes like that yesterday.
Like Adam Gase eventually became a head coach after his run as Jay Cutler's offensive coordinator. But I think that's a bad example too.
So here's the one guy I could think of that was in the same category as far as being direct and honest and just sort of to the point. And it's Vic Fangio.
Okay.
But I still think there's a difference there in terms of like.
I was thinking more offensive side too. Vic Fangio is your best example. I would say even like late Mel Tucker, like late in his run there where he actually opened up. You could see why he eventually became a head coach at Michigan State.
Yeah.
When he opened up a bit and was more himself. But
Back when he was with the Bears, I don't know that we had that vibe.
Well, I was talking about late Mel Tucker, like his last 2 weeks there before he knew he was getting fired.
By the way, Mel Tucker's still with us. He's not the late Mel Tucker. I just wanted to clarify that.
Late 2014 Mel Tucker.
There you go. Yeah, and just something to ponder there because I think we've had coaches, and probably Shane Waldron was one of them, where it was like the first press conference, you sort of have oh no vibes. I think, and I put this in my newsletter too, the overwhelming majority, it's more like wait and see. You kind of got to feel them out. And then, eventually you get your answer. I don't know. I don't want to like overstep this or like jump to any conclusions too soon, but I do not remember a coach just coming in like that and having such an immediate effect like that, where it's like, man, this guy can lead. This guy is capable of leading an entire locker room.
I don't think we're overrating this too, because what I think in those moments when a coordinator, a coach, a player is winning the press conference, the news conference, that's what he's like in front of the room.
Right.
Like when he's presenting things to a team. And I get certain demeanors will change, especially when it comes to head coaches, but you could see everything that players are talking about in terms of his no-nonsense attitude, how direct he is, how organized he is in his thoughts when you hear Thomas Brown speak. And you could see how that resonates with players as he talks to us.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, one of the guys I believe Thomas Brown coached with in LA would have been Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. They'll not really be going head-to-head. It'll really be going up against Brian Flores, but still the matchup, the transition happening here on this podcast right now as we bring in Alec Lewis, who covers the Vikings for The Athletic, does a great job. You can follow him and check out his pod, The Alec Lewis Show. What's up, buddy? Welcome back into the show. We appreciate you jumping on with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. That was a great segue. I mean, that's how you know you've been doing podcasting for a long time. That's just an exceptional type of move right there. I will tell you this, and I was just listening to you guys, and I really enjoyed it, and I told you guys that in the chat, but I watched the Bears coordinator's pressers yesterday. You had the defensive coordinator wearing sunglasses. I didn't really understand what that was about. But the offensive coordinator that you guys were just talking about, Thomas Brown, I thought the quote that he gave that was, and I watch all these every week because it's always interesting to me to just see how other coordinators are going about it. But when he said, like, we cannot have fear against this defense that is literally built around like imposing fear, I thought that was like a really good quote. And it's exactly, people talk about Brian Flores, and I'm rambling a lot here, so you can tell me to stop. But people always talk about like, oh, he's blitzing, cover zero. The reality is, since he's been in Minnesota, yes, they blitzed a lot, but so much of what he's done is make you think that he's blitzing all the time, and he's actually not. And it intimidates, and it suffocates, and it bothers. And so I was similarly impressed by just watching Thomas Brown for like 15 minutes. I was like, this guy kind of has it. I texted Kevin Fishman that. So, yeah.
I like how you called him Fishman there, by the way. What did you make of Thomas Brown saying, like, in terms of talking about the Flores scheme? He goes, like, how many unsackable plays can we design? I'm curious to what you thought about that, because, I mean, you cover Flores, and it's all they do that well. They attack quarterbacks well.
Yeah, this defense is it's like a Rubik's Cube to figure out, I think, for opposing offense. I mean, especially early in the year, I mean, CJ Stroud had immense trouble. I mean, I remember the Texans played at US Bank Stadium, and CJ Stroud was sitting on the bench, like looking at the iPad, like he was looking at a different sport, trying to figure out what was going on. Brock Purdy, after the 49ers game early in the year, came up to Brian Flores after the game, and the cameras caught it, and he said, "Crazy scheme, bro." So it's just, I mean, I think when Thomas Brown's talking about having as many unsackable plays as possible, he's probably just talking about the protection unit, and that is offensive line, that is tight ends, and that is running backs. Those guys have to be all over everything if they want to have a chance to mitigate the pressure. And you'll get guys running through the A-gap. You'll get guys off the edge. You'll get two guys off the edge, and they'll drop out on the other side. It's just they'll line it up, 7 guys, like it looks like a pump block, and you don't know who's coming, who's dropping at any time. And sometimes they drop depending on the slide and where the offensive line goes. So it's just it's what he's built here in a year and a half deserves. I mean, it's been talked about nationally, but it should be more, in my opinion, because he's doing it with a personnel that has not been infused by a ton of great draft picks, and it's been a lot of signees on like 1-2 year deals. So just really impressive.
I want to bring you back a few weeks to the Vikings game against the Rams and try to understand what the Rams did so well in that game. My colleague at CHGO, Nicholas Moriano, did some good digging this week. He pointed out that, before last week, the Bears had been one of the lowest ranked teams in terms of pre-snap motion. And just like that, Thomas Brown in 1 week went all the way up to 66% last week with pre-snap motion. And obviously the Rams are one of the teams known for doing that. They rank much higher in that category. And it seemed to do some things that allowed the Rams to move the ball a little bit better, have more success against the Vikings than most teams had at that point. Do you think there is something there to that can kind of throw off all the things that you're talking about that Brian Flores' defense does well? And because I'm just wondering if that's something that, using that Rams blueprint that worked a few weeks ago, Thomas Brown's connection, obviously, to Sean McVay, if that's something that can help the Bears this week.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I mean, the Lions and Rams both beat the Vikings in a 5-day span, and I will say one aspect of those games is the Vikings were without Blake Cashman, their middle linebacker, who I mean, I started a joke. It's like, okay, Blake Cashman, they're undefeated with Blake Cashman, so I mean, he's been unbelievable, but it's freaking Blake Cashman, and I like the guy. He's cool to talk to. He knows scheme, but I think that's definitely an aspect. I think what the Rams did more than anything else that stands out to me beyond just Matthew Stafford made a couple plays in that game that were wild, but they ran the football well. And like I think against this Brian Flores defense, I mean they've been the number one rushing defense in the NFL, and they're doing it with defensive tackles that listeners of this podcast will not be able to name: Harrison Phillips, Jonathan Bullard, Jerry Tillery. If the listener could have gotten those three, then you guys should send them a shirt or something, because those guys are not very known across the league. But they've stopped the run. And then what happens is these opposing offenses are in long downs and distances. And this defense is so – they play so much zone that there's so much space in the coverage that quarterbacks can find that space unless there's pressure on the quarterback to be able to find it. And so it is incumbent upon these teams to run the football well to be able to be in downs and distances that allow their quarterbacks to succeed. And I think both the Lions and the Rams did that. Pre-snap motion, definitely a part of it. I thought the Rams pass protection unit in that game was really, really good, just like the Lions the week before. So to me, it's, I mean, the cliche of all time is like it starts up front, but I legitimately think to play Brian Flores and to move the football, it really, I mean, it's if you can't protect and you can't block in the run game, it's over.
I think our listeners would have Jonathan Bullard on you. He's a former Bears draft pick.
Yeah.
Third round.
I should be more Jonathan Bullard. I should have more acumen relating to his backstory, but I don't.
Yeah, third round pick. Like, was that Pace? Ryan Pace?
Yeah, that was Ryan Pace. And he's had a much better career after leaving the Bears. Like
other players have.
So many seem to do.
Like other players have done. Okay, Kevin O'Connell. How was he handled going from like Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold? I imagine that first year with Kirk Cousins, like for his first year as a head coach, it had to be like immensely beneficial for him to have a veteran quarterback like that. So maybe take us through his quarterback path, Kevin O'Connell's.
Yeah, I mean, well, Kevin and Kirk had a prior relationship going back to Kirk's time in Washington. So they knew each other. And I would say that Kevin has been pretty open. It's like, you know, when I got, I mean, he said this, when I got to be the Vikings head coach, I knew that I would get to build my offense with a guy who had a lot of opinions, a lot of ideas, and a lot of experience around really good coaching staff. So, I mean, really the first 2 years, Kevin built his offense around what Kirk did well. And what Kirk wanted and what they could. I mean, both of them are so. Kirk really is so. I don't know. He's such a thinker that it worked with both of them, and so there were times where it really worked. There were times where it didn't. But there's no question that as the Vikings moved off of Kirk Cousins and transitioned to this year where they were going to have Sam Darnold until JJ McCarthy was healthy, and I mean not healthy, but where he was good enough to take the reins. They were definitely going to have to shift some of the offensive infrastructure. I know before the season they put a lot more on the offensive line in terms of pre-snap communication to take the load off of Sam Darnold. And then, I mean, this entire training camp and summer and OTAs, Kevin O'Connell spent that time figuring out, okay, what does Sam Darnold do well? What concepts does he like? He loves throwing dagger over the middle of the field. So we are going to find as many ways possible that we can structure these formations to run that type of concept. And I mean, he loved four verts. There's certain stuff that Sam Darnold really likes. And so Kevin felt like it was important for him to both figure out what that was and then find ways to be able to get to that as much as possible. And you know, it's been a free-flowing thing from the time the season started. There have been ups, there have been downs, but there's no question that Sam Darnold has played the best football of his career. There's no question that Kevin's willingness to believe in Sam and talk about his belief in Sam. I mean, Kevin is an uplifter for that position because he feels like he knows how hard it is, and it is his job to make them feel like everything's gonna be okay because it is a really hard spot. And so, I mean, the job that Kevin's done, the job that this staff has done, and then really like the fortitude of Sam Darnold for what he had to navigate with the Jets and the Panthers, I think enough cannot be said about just his path. But I mean, I'll tell you guys, and if you watch the film, you see it. Like, there are plays every single game where it is turnover worthy. He could be throwing an intercept. I mean, and he's thrown enough interceptions. He's turned the ball over, but there are, I mean, again, even when the interception numbers are not there, you see it. And I go back to week 1. I remember a throw in New York at MetLife Stadium where he puts it over the middle and you're like, nah, and it wasn't intercepted, but it could have been. So that's just part of the Sam Darnold experience. It's been interesting to watch.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you about, because it's not like the Vikings have been lighting up the scoreboard the last month or so. 3 straight games against the AFC South, that always helps. So they did a better job than the Bears did when they had that same situation earlier this season. But our defense is catching up to this new Sam Darnold. What's been going on here? Because I do think that they're, especially when it comes to the turnovers, there probably will be takeaway opportunities for the Bears defense, which is not perfect, but certainly has the ability to take the ball away, and it's something that they preach all the time.
Yeah, I mean, each game, I mean, the Titans this past weekend, Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat just obliterated the Vikings' interior offensive line and pass protection. So that made it very tough. And the Vikings were not able to run the football against that team. The Jaguars 2 weeks ago played one of the most interesting defensive structure games I've ever seen. They played split safety coverage, 2 high safeties, to eliminate explosive plays more than any team. And since Next Gen had been tracking this stuff, had played in that game to limit the deep throws. And it worked. And the Vikings ran the football. They possessed the ball like 43 minutes of that game. It was an absurd, ridiculous game that was perfect for Jacksonville, which I think is one of the worst towns of all time. 3 weeks ago against the Colts, Sam Darnold's 2 interceptions were both that was the reason. I think that game was really, Sam threw an interception in the red zone that he tried to throw through 2 players. Those guys don't just become invisible, so they intercepted the ball. And then he also tried an in cut that the Colts undercut. So it's been a combination of interesting defensive structures to take away the deep throw, an inability to run the football efficiently, consistently, and then Sam Darnold's turnovers. That's why the points on the board are what they are. But I'll say, I mean, if these defenses are not going to cover Justin Jefferson, he's going to obliterate you. And then if you are going to double team Justin Jefferson, and I'm interested to see how Matt Eberflus tries to cover him this upcoming weekend. If you try to do that, you play with 2 high safeties, they're going to try to run the football. And if you can stop the run, then it becomes pretty tough for this offense. But if you can't, I mean, Aaron Jones can get you. He still has the juice. He's still dynamic. So I mean, it doesn't feel like this Bears defense gets really creative with its structures on a week-to-week basis. But against Justin Jefferson, that's kind of something you have to do unless you're just going to be okay with him catching 11 passes for 175 yards, because he's going to do it. This guy, if you don't double cover him, you have no chance. You just don't.
When you cover a Chicago area kid drafted in the first round, especially from the Chicago Catholic League, by rule, this podcast must ask you about it. Ask you about him. It's in our contract. So can you give us an update on JJ McCarthy? There was a report that he underwent another surgery, I believe, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was reported as a surgery. You could call it a procedure. I don't know. JJ, for people who don't know, I mean, it was such a wild thing. He played in a preseason game against the Raiders. He looked really good in that game, like really, really good. And then the day after, we had like a press conference at the facility. It's like JJ came in, had a little knee soreness. Then 2 days later, he's being evaluated further. Then like a day later, yep, he's done for the season, torn meniscus. It was like, whoa, like what just happened? And then to your question and the mention of the procedure, Adam, he had like a little biologic injection, which is what they called it. I think it's mostly just like a platelet thing to kind of just streamline his rehab. But it sounds like he's good, he's healthy, he's been in the building, he's been active in meetings. I mean, the players love him. He has like a magnetic feel where if you meet him, you're like, is this real? Like, you can't always be like this. You can't always be like this nice or like personable. And you almost wonder, like, when's the other shoe going to drop? But I mean, you know this, Adam. Like, when I was in Chicago for a friend's birthday, just messing around, I went to LaGrange and spent the day at their family's house. And his dad was just like, yeah, come on in, baby. And I was like, what is going? It's just they're a very normal family. They love Michigan football. And JJ's kind of a special dude. So I'm looking forward when he's back healthy to watch him, because there were a lot of people very excited as training camp was kind of progressing.
By the way, his alma mater, Nazareth, semifinals tomorrow, rematch against St. Francis. So they got another really good quarterback with Logan Malachuk. Not quite as big, but still pretty damn good. So that'll be happening tomorrow. And Johnsy's Don's. Is that game tonight? Playing Ignatius?
That game is tonight. Yep.
There you go.
Catholic League.
Are you going?
No, it's kind of cold. And it's in the city tonight against Adams' alma mater.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you just watch them on YouTube.
It's true.
It's nice.
It's true. It's kind of cold. Yeah. That's.
It's cold here, let me tell you.
We got
I was gonna say, he's in Minnesota. What are you talking about?
I know. We got family come over tonight.
What are you thinking in this game, Alec?
Yeah, I got to be honest, and maybe the listener, Homer. I mean, look, Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores against Matt Eberflus and Thomas Brown. Like, I saw at some point, and I like Thomas. I said at the beginning, I was pretty impressed by just the way he carried himself. But for me, the coaching matchup is just it makes me think the Vikings are winning this game. And I mean, you know, the defense is just so it is so complicated. I looked this up. Brian Flores, when he was a head coach in Miami, they played 6 rookie quarterbacks, and he went 5-1 in those games. The only game he lost was by 3 points, and I think it was to the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. So he just young quarterbacks. It's a lot to handle. It just really is. So for that reason, but turnovers. I mean, if Sam Darnold is throwing the ball to Jalen Johnson or whomever, there's no telling. And I expect it to be close and gritty, grimy, windy, gray. That seems about right, doesn't it?
Sounds like our Sunday.
It looks like right now, looking out my window. That's for sure. We have hit basically winter in the Midwest, so we'll see the sun in I don't know, 3 months. That'll be good. Alec, thanks so much, man. It's always great having you on the show. You do a great job, and everybody should be following his coverage this weekend, and especially on Sunday as the Bears play the Vikings. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you guys for having me. You guys do a great. I mean, again, the segue at the top. I mean, I'm gonna have to study that film. I'm gonna go back and see how you did that. But no, thank you guys, and good luck to the alma maters that it's too cold to attend the game. So good luck.
Now I have to go attend it now if I'm being called out.
You are being called out. You definitely are. All right.
See ya.
I didn't really think about it. It was gonna be a battle between us regardless. I don't know. I was so, I'm coaching for Carmel, so I was thinking, all right, we win, then we play Notre Dame. But even though we lost, technically now it's Ignatius versus Notre Dame.
So, yeah, you got us the last time.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
State quarterfinals.
So the Prep Bowl, Catholic final.
Yes, the winner will play the Chicago Public League champion next week.
There you go. All right. Well, good luck. Hope you lose.
Thanks. Are you ready?
Let's do it. Over-unders. I'm
What?
sorry, 3 big questions. I can do this.
Skipping ahead here. 3 big questions. Number 1. Have the Bears been guilty of asking too much of Caleb Williams this season at the line of scrimmage?
I've been thinking about this a lot because at the beginning of the season, I was definitely a proponent of what they were doing because he's got to learn this stuff. But if the question is asking too much, maybe I think they've been guilty of not giving him enough answers. If that makes sense.
Or providing him bad answers.
Possibly. But that's not to excuse him. I mean, he has made mistakes. There's no question about it. But there were fewer mistakes last week. And I don't think that, I mean, maybe they pulled it back a little bit, but he was still making checks and reading things at the line of scrimmage. So
on that final possession, he checked the full protection, max protection, and got the ball to Keenan Allen.
Yeah,
first down, ball's moving.
I am still a believer that in the long term, this is going to pay off. So I guess I still lead towards no.
I'm a no, and I bring it up this week because it has been a topic of conversation this week because of all the different looks that Brian Flores, as Alec was saying, presents. He's going to try to confuse Caleb Williams, and he's going to succeed. It's just not Caleb Williams' fault. As Alec was saying, he got C.J. Stroud. He got Brock Purdy. He's going to get quarterbacks with his exotic looks. That's what Brian Flores does and does extremely well. If there's one good thing that Shane Waldron has done, it has been loading up Caleb Williams' plate in this respect. I want to give him credit for that because this is real quarterback play. He's not going to be perfect, but he's got to learn how to do it. And different stories have unfolded in Denver, in Washington. He's doing different things here. And I think it matters this week. I think all that experience, good and bad, will help Caleb Williams this week when he meets Brian Flores.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still not expecting it to go completely smooth. But look, we saw this was a problem last year with Justin Fields, and I've been on record many times as that first play against the Vikings at Soldier Field was kind of the moment where I was like, I don't think this is going to be the guy long term. So it is a good test with that text. Now Justin was a third-year quarterback at that point. Caleb's a rookie, so there's a little bit of a longer leash here, no question, but I still expect it to be better. Remember, even though they beat the Vikings in Minnesota last year, they did not score a touchdown in that game.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's next?
Number 2, you were at Hallis Hall this week, Adam Hoge. Do you sense that there is a Hail Mary-like hangover lingering over this team?
Wow, another good question I was thinking about last night, actually. Because I was thinking about this in context of my prediction, which we're going to get to here in a little bit. I think there's a little bit of one. I don't think it's as bad. And I think Thomas Brown is a big reason why it's not as bad.
Especially for the offensive players. I will 100% agree with you on that.
I'm a little worried about the hangover on the defense, though. And it's comments like Montez Sweat yesterday that you both want to hear, but you also are a little worried about.
Which comments, like him directly saying, "I'm sick of effing losing."
Yeah, when he's like, "I'm really effing frustrated."
Yeah.
And he also was like, "I gotta, I'm a player that I need to have the sack production. Like the numbers have to be there. It can't just all be pressures." So, and the way that Jalen Johnson was pretty demoralized after the game, there's just something like I feel like the energy that Thomas Brown has brought to the offense actually puts them in a little bit of better position to turn the page. But then again, I mean, you heard Cole Kmet, as raw as he could be on the 85 this week, saying that he got emotional after the game, threw his helmet in his locker. And I would say that, even Tuesday morning as we were recording that show, I mean, he was still pretty down then too, which was similar to the Hail Mary. So I definitely think it's a storyline. And it would not shock me if we're talking about another loss because of possibly how defeated they are just coming out of it. Because it was very similar ending.
I think the best way I would describe it, and I kind of mentioned this, I think Monday or Wednesday, there is a feeling of we just can't catch a break.
Right.
Does that make sense? Where it's beyond a blocked field goal. It's Jalen Johnson tripping over Christian Watson's feet, Jalen Johnson falling, Christian Watson making a diving catch, maybe a catch, depending how you want to look at the video. Like that break for the Packers happening.
Which happens every time they play. No, it does.
It does.
It literally does.
It does, yes.
Every single game they play, there is some play like that where a ball is just launched downfield and something goes horribly wrong for the Bears and it goes horribly right for the Packers. Every time.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. It's very true.
But don't forget, Jahns, Matt Eberflus was proud of the defense for holding them, even though they gave up the lead. That 2-point conversion was.
So what I'm going to say is that doesn't make any sense.
I know.
Next question.
Thank you.
Next question. Number 3. Would Brian Flores be on your list of head coaching candidates if you're running a team that's entering the search?
He definitely would be. Extremely complicated situation, though.
Why?
I heard Mike Florio talking about this on the radio yesterday, and the reality is that the lawsuits that he has against a number of teams still in the league, it puts you in a position where, as an owner, if you hire Brian Flores, you are pitting yourself against other owners in the league. That may not be fair, but it is the reality of the situation. And we know that in very few cases do owners like to go into those owners' meetings and be viewed as an enemy by, the majority of the other ownerships. So that is going to continue to hurt Brian Flores and, in his quest to become a head coach again. I do believe he can be and probably should be. But if you're looking for a franchise to be that ownership group that is going to say, oh, yeah, I'm fine with everybody being mad at me, I do not see that being the McCaskies.
Here's my prediction. He's going to be a popular candidate in this cycle as teams start to ask him questions, feel him out, ask him questions about what happened in Miami with Tua and whatnot. He'll be a popular candidate in this year's cycles just because his body of work is so good this year. The things he's doing with that personnel, the attacking, the exotic looks, teams like that. I like that. I think it helps that he now has a relationship with the Sean McVay coaching tree with Kevin O'Connell. I think that's a benefit, or that's a positive that teams will look at just in terms of his offensive strategy. See how much he's evolved in that sense. But you're right. I'm not sure which team is ready to hire him as a head coach.
If you're watching on YouTube, that brightness that just appeared on my face was the sun.
Yeah, me too now.
Wow. Well, maybe that's a sign, Jahns.
That Brian Flores will get a job or the Bears win?
Probably not.
Okay.
There's Vic.
No.
Over-unders. I like this one. For Marty. Over-under a half. Caleb Williams TD passes. Caleb Williams has not thrown a touchdown pass in more than a month.
He hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in the United States in like
Put it that way.
6 weeks, 7 weeks.
It's been a while. It's been a minute, as John Fox would say.
He also hasn't thrown an interception in the United States in the same amount of time. Well, his last INT was also in London. Yeah, I'm taking the over on this one. The thing about Brian Flores' defense is as much confusion as it can cause. It leads to, and this is something Cole Kmet's brought up multiple times over the last 2 years. It leaves you unsound on the back end a lot. And if you can come up with answers, and heck, maybe sometimes you don't even have the answers. You're going to luck into one at some point because of things being unsound on the back end. And the Bears do have the pass catchers to be able to exploit that. So I do think they find the end zone, and I think it might even be on an explosive pass.
Ooh.
This week.
Okay, I agree with you. I think he ends his streak against the Vikings. This is from G-Man. Sacks of Caleb, 3.5. Sacks of Darnold, 1.5. I'm going to go under for both. I think the Bears, 2 players are going to share a sack on Sam Darnold, and that's going to be it. The pass rush, I've seen enough. This is what it is. The personnel isn't there. The development from some of the younger players isn't there. They share a sack. 2 players share a sack. I'm going to say Chris Williams and Montez Sweat share a sack on Sam Darnold, and sacks on Caleb Williams. The Vikings will get 3, but there's going to be some series where he's running for his life back there.
I'm going to take the over on both.
Ooh.
I'm going to take the over on both. Caleb still took 3 sacks last week, 2 on that last drive. I fear that there's going to be a moment like that again where it's like, oh man, he just took 2 sacks in 3 plays or whatever. So I think they at least get to 4. And then the reasoning on the other one I will save for a little bit later on in the show.
Ooh, okay. From Bears Purgatory, over under live shots of Thomas Brown in the booth at 1.5.
Way over.
Yes. I think that Fox saw that emotion, saw when the offensive coordinator stands up and screams, "Let's effing go," and it goes viral a little bit. You know you have something good there. That camera is going to be recording.
The Kevin Kugler and Daryl Moose Johnson are the guys calling the game this week, which I think is I like that. I like that crew.
Good job by Equinemius St. John. He's going to get the block.
That was Moose, but he's good. He's good. He's good.
From Sam, Roma Dunze targets, over under 7.5.
That's a little too high for me. I'll take the under.
Me too. He'll flirt with 6. Austin, over under 1.5 obvious coaching blunders from Matt Eberflus. Let me say it again. Over under 1.5 obvious coaching blunders from Matt Eberflus.
I hate to say it, but over. It seems to be getting worse, not better. So whether it's like a misuse of timeouts, a bad challenge, God forbid this comes down to the final minute of the game again. Yeah, I'm going to take the over.
I think you're going to have a couple timeouts wasted just because of what Brian Flores will do.
Yeah, those aren't necessarily blunders, though. I mean, it depends.
Well, is he the one calling them? Maybe Caleb was comfortable.
Yeah.
You'll get one at least. You'll get one. All right, from Aaron, over under a mentions of Kevin Warren. New stadium, Viking stadium, general front officery. I like that. Starting at half.
Yeah, we'll get one Kevin Warren mention.
Absolutely.
Because of the connection there. I believe he still has a place in Minnesota,
I believe he does.
but the game's here. So I'll take the over on that one too. All right, let's get to our picks for the game. This is Fox Noon. The Vikings are a 3.5-point favorite over the Bears. That's an interesting line to me, Jahns, because the Packers were a 5.5-point favorite. So is Vegas saying the Packers are better than the Vikings?
I think Vegas is saying that the Bears might be slightly better than we thought.
Okay.
But still not good enough to be.
Well, they
a
did
home
cover
favorite.
last week.
Yes. Should have
So-
won last week.
Probably a combination of both. Let's start.
Bold predictions.
So I mentioned earlier I'd take the over on 1.5 sacks for the Bears defense. I think Montez Sweat not only gets 2 sacks in this game, but one of them is a strip sack.
Ooh.
Whether or not the Bears recover, I don't know, but I think he will knock the ball out at least once.
My bold prediction last week kind of came true because they scored in their opening possession. Now it was a field goal. So I'm going to say this time they score on their opening possession, but it's a touchdown, and it's going to be by a running back against the Vikings defense, which I believe has only allowed 4 rushing touchdowns all year and is number 1 in yardage. So there is your bold prediction.
That is bold considering how it's gone. All right, who you got in the game?
Here is what I wrote. Vikings 20, Bears 17. Williams will have good moments with Thomas Brown as his play caller for the second game in a row, but he's still a rookie quarterback playing one of the best defenses in the league. Some possessions could look ugly for the Bears, as they do for many teams, against Brian Flores' blitz-heavy attack. 20-17 Vikings.
All right, we have very similar scores. I think that offensively, you're going to see a similar game as you saw last week. I think Thomas Brown is going to have some answers. I don't think it's going to be the smoothest operation, though. The Bears had some missed opportunities last week. They could have gone up 17-7 at one point, which would have been huge. But I think it overall, we'll be talking about it being a building block. If last week was a building block, this is, the next step. So I don't think it's going to be disastrous. I think there's going to be moments that don't look great. But here's the kicker for me. If there's one thing Matty Eberflus has done well, or at least he has on his resume when it comes to wins and losses, it's that there's a whole list of bad to mediocre quarterbacks that the Bears have beaten under his watch. And as great as the Sam Darnold story was earlier in the season, I have seen regression. I have seen teams adjust. And he has always been the guy that turns the ball over. And that rarely changes over the course of your career when you've done it to the level that he's done it. And he started, as we heard from Alec, he started to do it more here lately. He's turned back into a pumpkin, essentially. And I do think the Bears will have opportunities to take the ball away. So adding all this up, I will probably regret this, but it's more of a gut feeling I'm following this week. I have the Bears winning this game 20-16.
Wow. They better get those takeaways then.
I just don't think this Vikings team is as good as their record indicates. I know they just went 3-0 against the AFC South, but they did not look great in any of those games. And the 2 teams they played before that, the Lions and the Rams, they lost. So I think this is a different type of test for them this week. I think it's just a kind of your classic. Honestly, I don't want to knock the Steelers because the Steelers are having a great season. But even last night, it's like, are the Browns really a 2-8 team? They made the playoffs last year. They're going through a lot of crap there in Cleveland. But on paper, they're probably better than 2-8. And are the Steelers came into that game 8-2, I think? Yeah, then they lost. Are they really an 8-2 team? They hadn't scored a touchdown in like 3 weeks. And then you saw it play out last night, and the Browns pulled off the win. That happens. This is the NFL. I just feel like this is that type of game where are the Vikings better than the Bears overall? Absolutely. But I don't know that either team is as good or as bad as it's kind of been indicated so far this season. You go out there on the football field, I think the Bears pull it out.
Is there a surprise snowstorm about to hit Chicago on Sunday that I don't know about?
I hope not.
Like
so you're just blaming the snow for last night?
A little bit.
I believe the Browns have beaten the Steelers 5 out of the last 6 times in Cleveland.
Okay. That's fine. The Vikings, like I'm with you. I feel like there's a win somewhere, maybe 2 wins somewhere in here over the final 7 games for the Bears, and this would be one that you would circle. But the Vikings defense is top 5 in opposing quarterback rating, top 5 in sack percentage, top 5 in top 1 in rush defense. They're a darn good defense. And at the end of the day, Caleb Williams is still a rookie quarterback. We'll see. Like, I would side with Brian Flores in that argument over what Thomas Brown can do, as much as Thomas Brown has been a positive for the Bears over the past couple of weeks.
Well, and hey, look, my prediction last week was this is going to come down to the 4th quarter, and the Packers have the coaching advantage. And what happened? The coaching advantage won out.
Yeah.
And that was basically why Alec Lewis picked the Vikings. I can't pick the Bears when they win and so that's fair. It's 100% fair. And it's probably the smarter way to go. Like I said, this is like kind of more of a gut feel.
You know what I wouldn't be surprised happens? Because we've seen this play out at Soldier Field a couple of times where, let's say, Caleb Williams has a good drive in the final 4 minutes. Cairo Santos makes like a 28-yard field goal for a 20-17 lead. And then Sam Darnold takes the field and just can't be stopped. I'm serious about this. Like, I've covered enough of these. Like,
yeah,
you're feeling great in the moment. Caleb Williams just delivered another game-winning drive. You just need the defense to stop him, and they just don't.
We got some things up our sleeve, so.
All right.
See what's up the sleeve. All right, well, let's keep it going as we pick some of the other games around the league. Fox, noon, Lions. They've been beating everybody by 30, and somehow they're only a 7-point favorite against the Colts. This game's in Indy, though.
I am going to take the Lions to cover this.
Yeah.
They're going to win by like 10, 14, 13. They are just rolling. Best team in the league, Super Bowl favorites at the moment, which is kind of, for a podcast that used to say the Lions are the Lions, they're no longer Lionsing. They are winning.
No, credit to them.
And winning handedly. They're the best team in the league. Lions by more than a touchdown here.
I agree. I've been picking the Lions pretty much every week. I'm going to keep doing it as they keep rolling.
We are strong where we're strong right now, and we need to improve where we need to improve.
Fox 325, the 49ers head to Green Bay. George Kittle grew up a Bears fan. He said in the locker room this week, there's no way I'm missing this game. Playing the Packers. The Packers are a 2-point favorite against the 5-5 San Francisco 49ers.
Are the 49ers a good team, or are they just kind of in the middle of the pack?
They are they're scuffling right now. Brock Purdy is scuffling. He's
scuffling. I like
he is. He's
scuffling.
He doesn't seem to have the same timing and rhythm that he was kind of shocking everybody with last year before that.
It's good to have Christian McCaffrey back.
I'm going to take the 49ers. I have visions of Robbie Gould hitting a walk-off field goal in the playoffs.
Okay.
Even though Robbie's coaching high school football now. I'm going to take the 49ers.
All right. I agree with you, actually. The 49ers are going to win this game outright.
I didn't hear all of it. I heard a lot about most of it, but what I did hear, I did not hear any of that.
What
Fox
was that,
3
sorry. I'm trying to remember, what was that about? I mean, with that, you could just pick anything in terms of controversy. There were so many things. Like,
that's a good question. I forget the context of what that was about. We have to look that up.
Okay, carry on.
I could probably find it here.
I didn't hear all of it. I heard a lot about most of it, but what I did hear, I did not hear any of that.
See if I can find it.
Just
find
fantastic.
Because there's.
All right, I'll start us off though. Fox 325 Cardinals, a 1-point favorite at the Seahawks. Are the Cardinals a good team, Adam Hoge?
They're not a bad team. Yeah, they still lack. They have Buda Baker, but they still kind of lack that star power, especially on defense. But Jonathan Gannon, they seem to have a good coaching staff. This is a tough spot, obviously, going to Seattle, but I weirdly trust them more than the Seahawks. So
I'm gonna take the Seahawks in this one.
Okay. I mean, that would make sense. Cardinals coming off the bye, though. You know what, though? That was one of those situations where it's kind of a bad time to go into a bye, the way they were playing. So, I'll roll with you. I'll take the Seahawks. It's basically a pick 'em. It's 1 point. So, yeah.
The one word that stands out to me is complimentary football.
NBC 720. This is your Sunday night game. Good one. Good one. Eagles go to LA. This is the Vic Fangio against Sean McVay matchup. That's essentially 6 years in the making. I mean, and this is a Bears connection. This was when Vic was able to shut down the Rams at Soldier Field, that high-flying Rams offense. The Bears won, and Bill Belichick ended up stealing that entire blueprint, that entire defense. It's essentially installed a new defense before the Super Bowl, and the Patriots shut the Rams out in that Super Bowl. And now here they are again. Vic now with the Eagles. Sunday night, the Eagles are favored by 3. This is going to be a fun game to watch.
Are the Eagles a legitimate Super Bowl contender?
I mean, they sure look like the best option to challenge the Lions right now. I don't know that I trust Nick Sirianni yet. And I need to see them get through November, all of November, and probably early December before I completely buy in. Remember, the Eagles kind of fell off they did not finish well last year. This is the type of game. This is the type of game that kind of answers that question, Jahns. Because do you go on the road to LA? Rams are playing better. They're healthier than certainly they were when they came to Soldier Field earlier this year. You got to win this game. And if you don't, I think that kind of answers that question.
I think the Rams win.
Wow.
Sorry, Vic.
I can't go against Vic Fangio though. Can't do it. So I'm gonna take the Fighting Vic Fangios to shut down the Rams again. They're really playing well on defense right now.
I'd like to see him get his hands on more balls.
There's Vic.
Monday night, another good matchup. The Harbaughs head-to-head, also in LA. Get back-to-back primetime games, Sunday and Monday night in the same stadium. Has that happened before? Probably happened in New York at some point.
Yeah, New England, maybe.
I'm sure it probably has happened at SoFi too. But whatever. It's the Ravens favored by 3 at the Chargers. Chargers obviously playing pretty well right now.
Give me the Chargers and the points. Jim beats John this time.
I agree with you. Well, Super Bowl revenge game.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have this matchup back.
There's going to be a lot of Harbaughisms. Like there's going to be a full segment on it. The old man's going to get interviewed.
I don't care. It's entertaining.
It's fine.
Have you seen these videos of Jim Harbaugh it's like annoyingly talking up Justin Herbert? Like it's like he's doing a bit.
Well, he did the same thing to tie this all into the Vikings game. J.J. McCarthy got the same love and attention.
But have you seen these? Like I know Herbert talked about it this week. It's like, yeah, it's almost making me uncomfortable. But you know what? Coach always talking me up. It feels good too.
I like it actually.
Who's got it better than us?
Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh. Just think about we'd have that on a shirt right now.
Oh yeah.
If they hired Jim Harbaugh.
They should have hired him just on that alone. Could you ever imagine a Bears coach being able to say who's got it better than us?
Yeah.
He's the only one.
Like, wouldn't you think George McCaskey would love that?
They screwed that up so bad. I don't even. And I hate it was never even an option for either side. Exactly. That's the problem. It should have been.
I don't know how we're down this road again, but I just think a strong-minded coach like Jim Harbaugh wants to report to George McCaskey.
Fine.
Then make it happen.
You know, so what? Isn't the whole point of this to win? You need a good head coach.
I believe it. I think you're correct. I think the whole point of this is to win football games.
Why is that?
I'm not certain sometimes, but I think you're onto something there.
Because it just doesn't seem like that here. But maybe that's why I'm so far down the road here already with Thomas Brown, because he just says things that make sense. And too many times here in Chicago, things are being said that don't make sense. It's like, oh, let's design unsackable plays. Oh, it doesn't matter if I'm comfortable. The players are the ones playing. They need to be comfortable, so I need to make them comfortable. Oh, yeah, that makes sense too. This doesn't need to be complicated.
Chargers.
Picking the Chargers. Okay. That's going to do it for us. Fun show. Always great having Alec Lewis on. We'll probably talk to him again in a few weeks. So the Bears will be on Monday Night Football against the Vikings on December 16th. Got another tailgate if anybody wants to come out. Everybody but Jahns is invited.
If you ever reach the point where you actually have a tailgate where we're throwing meatballs at Greg Bragg's, you can 100% count me in for that.
Yeah, I actually forget now what he threw out earlier this week. That was the meatball.
It was very meatball-y.
Yeah, well, of course it is. He's been doing this whole bit all week where he's Brad, the 49ers fan, trying to get Kyle Shanahan fired. So he can come to Chicago. Yeah. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, there you heard it. You know Greg's listening.
I know he is.
We do the meatball thing, Jahns will come out.
And throw meatballs at you.
Yeah. But I'm only throwing frozen ones.
Well, they would go farther, number one.
Yeah. Oh.
If you want to make an impact, a nice frozen impact, yeah, that'll work.
Follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. We're there. We're available.
Mark Potash described Blue Sky as Blue Ski. We should call it Blue Ski.
Blue Ski?
Blue Ski.
He didn't know what it was like, how to say it or what.
Well, he's fully on Blue Ski now.
Yeah. Potty had a great interaction with John Hoge yesterday, by the way.
That was fun.
What a treasure he is. All right. HoganJahns.com. Get our new shirt as well. We'll be back Monday morning, 9 a.m. live on YouTube. Podcast will follow shortly after that. We will recap everything that happened Sunday at Soldier Field between the Bears and Vikings. We will talk to you then.
See ya.